Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on the arts. Throughout history here and across the globe, art has served as a reflection of society and the times in which we are living. Many artists create work that intersects with political activism and social justice causes, and art has played a role in social justice, education, community building, and social movements. My first guest certainly understands what it means to be an artist. She's a writer, performance artist, and a create change agent. Dasha Kelly Hamilton is the founder of Still Waters Collective, and she's the first African-American poet laureate for the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin. How are you, Dasha?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. It's great to be here with you.
Well, thank you and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've got a lot of exciting things happening, so I wanted to definitely have you on to fill us in. So I'd like for you to talk about the launching of your national tour of Making Cake.
Making cake. I'm really excited. One, manifesting as a true thing, good people, so speak things into existence. And secondly, my husband likes to call them stubborn prayers, that idea that doesn't make sense to anyone else, but you just feel it in your spirit. So being able to do this work that is leaning into the process of creativity, which is a different discussion than just the output of creativity, the poem, the song, the production, the dance routine, leaning into what it takes, which is just being open to imagination to get to that final piece. There's so much gold in that process. And I've used that process to do trainings, to do community organizing, to encourage us all to fall into conversations that are difficult. And that work got the attention where I was able to speak at an arts conference. And speaking at an arts conference, the directors of the Kohler Art Center in Sheboygan approached me and said, listen, we've seen you speak twice now, and we're ready for you to come to Sheboygan, and we're ready to talk about race. I said, okay, I'm coming. So creativity, if you get a room full of people together, and as I've done over these many years, get them to write one poem, that room went through something together, because being creative makes people uncomfortable because you're worried about whether it's funny enough or artistic enough or good enough. So taking people just through being imaginative, we were able to open this conversation. Those conversations fed my idea to make this show. And the conversation doesn't get any easier. So how to incorporate something sweet like eating cake into a way to have a discussion about race. So this started as an invitation to work through this idea with the Kohler Art Center. And I've had a chance to then take that first version and do it again at the Milwaukee Fringe Festival. I did more research, I added more bells and whistles. And then sitting in the middle of my backyard, trying to figure out what the world was going to look like everyone else was last summer.
Yeah.
I was invited to join a talent agency. So the show got picked up by an agent, and now it's being booked across the country. And it's taking it from this idea that lived in my head that I just felt so deeply and worked on. And I'm really proud of what's going to happen next.
Wow, I think it's amazing. And you said something key when you talk about race and inequality, gender inequality, whatever the case may be. Sometimes people can be uncomfortable. And when you talk about making cake and you have layers to this cake and you talk about the ingredients that actually lend and can actually teach us about race, class, and equity in America, I guess it makes it a little easier for people to digest, no pun intended.
Just a bit, just a bit.
Yeah, so I think that's remarkable. Now, Making Cake is going to be happening Friday, October 8th at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. And I mentioned you have layers to the cake. How many layers does this particular cake have?
Oh, I would say three. The first layer is our stories. You know, I am not a scientist. I don't even bake cakes, but I'm a storyteller. And and I was a really good student in school too. So put these two things together of finding these narratives that are rooted in fact. And your point, what makes the conversation complicated is we are trying to have arguments against our lived experiences. I can't tell you what your life was like. You can't tell me how I felt in third grade, and we can't convince Mark what his experience was like as a guy. But
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to do. So the layers are one, getting us to a place where we're all on that first layer together and telling stories. That second layer is literally weaving in the narrative of Cake. The idea from doing this show, I had this idea of, I did a show about objects years ago, and I just had this idea of cake. And in researching the ingredients, they all tell the story of access. They all tell the
Mm.
story of equity. They all tell the story of class. So that second layer is weaving in things we all know well. I did know a lot of things about cake and baking and just the way it shows up and pinpoints so much of our history and how we got
Mhm.
here. And the third
Wow.
layer is conversation. We literally fall into the lobby, the foyer, and have cake together. And there's a way to fall in a conversation, because what we've all discussed and gone through in the show really makes all of us look inward to think about the assumptions that we've made. It helps us appreciate the person, literally the person sitting next to us, their journey, and the
Mhm.
reality that, as sweet as this nation is,
Mhm.
there's some ingredients in here that we really, really need to talk about.
Wow, that's brilliant. So I was actually reading an article on study.com, and it stated that racial inequality in the United States is very pronounced when you look at statistics of racial minorities having lower incomes and less accumulated wealth than whites. And it stated discrimination in the workplace and in schools is still very common, and Black Americans face higher unemployment rates than white Americans. These are statistics, of course, that many of us have heard over and over again, but when you talk about making cake and
Mm-hmm.
really trying to have people better understand, because a lot of this falls under the umbrella of systemic racism, where, it's not necessarily something that's meant to be deliberate, but it was put in place at a time where people of color were not thought of. And so therefore it does not work to their advantage. It doesn't work to make everyone equal.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about you're making cake, will you be saying specific things or doing anything for audience participation at all?
Yes, 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 yes. So though in the production itself, the participation is that I have two bakers baking a cake, baking
Aha.
cakes live on stage. So a lot of it is, and I'm sharing stories, there's projected media and watching them do their thing. And we'll have a chance to enjoy that cake at the end. But to your
Love it.
point, absolutely. One thing that was interesting that won't give too much away, there was literally a team of federal bakers, we're going to call them that, and their task was to dispatch into this new land mass, because you have, think of the Southern Belles who all of a sudden have to take care of themselves, and then we're going west, young folks, and they didn't know how to cook. And
Mm.
so and you're also trying to tend land that you're unfamiliar with, that was harsh. And so we sent out these federal bakers to teach the ladies how to cook, how to take care of all this land, how to raise the kids. And also, while I'm here, what kind of music is okay? What conversations are allowed? And these were provisions made only for white families.
Mm-hmm.
So, just in the exercise of going to share recipes, again, to your point, it was unintentional, but it was the design of the times that we lived in. And there are several other examples, not just with Black Americans, but with our Native Americans, things that were carved out for positions for women.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's points in this show where I talk about Chinese, Mexican, and class issues. I
Mm-hmm.
have a chance to also do a lot of visiting and training, and even as poet laureate, I use my platform to continue this work of creatively thinking and developing stories. But you have to answer a lot of questions to get from an I don't know blank piece of paper to a full story or a poem. And when we're in these groups, I get to ask the group, let's think about why you're all of a sudden mad about George Floyd.
Mm.
Let's talk about why this is not a new anger for people of color. Let's, in fact, think of ways that we can compare these narratives we all have, and they all matter. And it's reminding folks and giving them a place to examine the things that have always been in front of us, but we haven't been invited to examine in any other way. So, and it's also giving people a place to talk about it. So the other layer is that is it's also can feel like a who's woker than thou competition. And having a lot of information and being able to spit off facts and figures is clever, but doesn't impact how we interact with each other if we don't find a way to absorb it. My husband likes to say that this show, that the cake happens after, that while you're watching the show, it's a batter that's being poured into you. Because you just can't help but look at everything a little bit differently after. So we're able to make all of these pinpoints in telling the story of cake.
I love it all. So when you talk about class, social class shapes our life changes in some important ways as well. So people in lower classes have less access to opportunities like education and often live in struggling neighborhoods. And of course, people of lower social economic status have less access to resources like quality health care and so many other things. And that's what we talk about on this show, probably more so than not. But if you would, give us an idea of this national tour and some of the places that you will be traveling to once you kick things off at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater.
Well, we are so many things happening in my head and heart at the same time. So what I want to let you know, we'll be starting off in Milwaukee, hometown girl, kicking off with our hometown theater, and also Sheboygan, the Kohler Art Center has also reached back and they were able to design a light show. So it's like getting a crease in a nice pair of pants. The city is really sending me off with all of the pieces to really represent well. And this engagement part, the rep is working with me to finalize what that process looks like so that everywhere we travel, the experience will look and feel the same. So the next day we're in Cedarburg at the Cedarburg Performing Arts Center, and we have a time to regroup. And we'll be in New York, in Massachusetts, in Virginia. Georgia is already lining up for next fall. And I know I'm forgetting someone that we go to at the top of the year. And so those dates are still coming through.
I think I read you're going to quite a few campuses across the state of Wisconsin as well. So
Absolutely.
college campuses. So you have been traveling and doing your work as an artist, and really, I like to say, spreading your talent like icing on a cake. So
nice one.
So yeah, I really, as we wrap up, I would like to have you kind of give us an idea of what it's been like for you to serve as the city's first African American poet laureate, as well as the state of Wisconsin, and not so much even, being the first, but just the honor in itself. What's that been like for you?
It has been exactly that, an honor, particularly with the city laureateship. It was an honor that I received a phone call. And it felt really good in that very specific moment in my career where so much felt uncertain, but also I'm really certain of what I've done. I'm proud of the work and the relationship we've built. And then to find that there's been this ongoing conversation and committee work and votes and decision, it was a breath that I let out to be acknowledged in that way, and I didn't have to tap dance for it. I didn't have to make a plea for it. It was something that was decided outside of my hands. And that was an incredibly redemptive in a lot of ways. And I just really felt especially proud. And then to be in that space, and then COVID happens. So worked really closely with the library. The project that I had in mind just worked to translate it into a virtual experience. And it's worked out actually a bit better. So it was poemologues, and a way to engage people in dialogue who wouldn't fall in dialogue otherwise, and using a poem as a way to get them into the space. So we were able to broadcast these discussions virtually, and it gave us also something a little bit different to pour into and watch when we're all getting our initial Zoom weariness. And being selected as a state laureate, similarly, I'm using the same process, my same relationship with poetry, with poets, with community building, is how do we bring community together? So we're doing a statewide poetry exchange. and it's open to all of our residents, and in particular have been working incredibly hard to make sure it includes the residents of our state prisons. Of all of the outreach work that I've done, it's my most fulfilling and rewarding, because you're able to offer this gift back to a group of humans that don't always get offered gifts. We can have a whole conversation about who should and shouldn't be in the building, but those are folks, people's children, someone that are in those buildings, and having had a chance to work in this work for so many years, incredibly talented as well. So we're going to be able to write together, and you would write a poem, Andrea. Remember, you won that slam. You would write a poem, and then you would receive in return a poem from someone else in the state who wrote to the same prompt. And at the end of this experience, you all will also make recommendations on who will go in a new book with me. So being able to creatively invite people into a conversation that they may not have jumped into directly: racism, incarceration, body health, mental health, you name it. I've tried to frame a creative way for us to enter it. So I'm excited that not only I get to perform this new art, but we get to use creativity in the arts to really move the needle forward.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us today. Continue success to you in all that you're doing, and keep us up to date.
Absolutely.
With all your great work. Daisha Kelly Hamilton is a former Artist of the Year for the City of Milwaukee, and she is the City of Milwaukee's 11th Poet Laureate, as well as the state of Wisconsin. Check out the kickoff of her national tour of Making Cake on Friday, October 8th at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. Visit MilwaukeeRep.com for more information. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll find out more about an organization that connects professional and emerging artists to resources, support, and art appreciators. We'll do that right after this.